I'm not motivated by money, obviously. I'm a high school teacher. That would not be my number one concern. You can get me with an idea, but you can't get me with $1. And that's part of the reason I think that I am qualified to try to do this, to be very honest with you. He's spending $1.5 million to get a job that pays $174,000 a year. Now, as a citizen, one might ask why that is so. And obviously, it is, in fact, what it gives you access to as far as other money that comes in and other endorsements. I believe that we need to go to public financing of all campaigns. We need time limits. We need time limits for the campaign, term limits for the people that are involved, and nobody should give any private funding more than $1,000 a person, no exceptions. You take a nickel, you're disqualified from the election, or you're pulled from office. And the reason for that is I truly believe, historically, and my background is in history, Americans have always had ideological differences from the very first administration. But we've also been pragmatists as politicians. And what prevents our politicians from being pragmatic is that they're cemented into their ideological positions by the money that they're given. And I think we need to get rid of that, because right now who they vote in the interest of are those that contribute to their campaigns, not to the general public good, certainly not to their constituents. And to get out from between the constituent and the representative, we need to get that dollar amount out from between our representatives. So that's my first priority, would be public financing of campaigns. And it will require a constitutional amendment to the city court. I'm sure you know that the court just ruled that that corporations are people, and in the instance of contributing to a campaign, so they're given unlimited ability to contribute. And the court didn't even bother to distinguish domestic or foreign. As an American citizen, that should scare you to death. If it doesn't, you're not paying attention. That's all I've got to say.
Money is free speech. That's how they did. That was the argument. There's a gentleman back here from the Deseret News who knows. He's shaking his head. Yep, that's the argument they used. Understand, dollars are not people. People vote. Dollars do not speak. We need to strip that personhood from corporations as far as campaign financing is concerned.
The top to bottom issues that I think you can reach across to even Republicans on the far right are federal financing of elections, term limits, time limits for elections, like you can only run for the president, you see, for a year. None of this 4-year run for the presidency stuff, you see, 2.5 years. 9 months for play for a senator, 6 months for a member of the House, and so forth and so on. Because if you're doing it on the taxpayer's dollar, there needs to be some sort of time limit to that.
If we don't do something and do it fast, 10 years from now we're going to have 2 political parties, and one's going to say Goldman Sachs and the other one's going to say AIG. And that's what the government, that's what those parties are going to look like. Everybody here knows intuitively who owns your representatives. I can stand right here and tell you. Top 3 contributors to Jim Matheson are the pharmaceuticals, the healthcare industry, and oil and gas development, in order. 83% of the money that runs his office comes from special interest corporations, mostly corporations. Those figures look worse for the 2 Republican people we have currently represented. In other words, if you start to follow the money, one of the things you discover is they vote very consistently.
Or the big guy.
Yep, they vote very consistently with who's going to pay for their next election. They do. And it's a rare representative that doesn't. And so I would suggest to you that we truly need to, as American citizens, whether you vote for me or not, you need to take action to make sure you get that money out of elections. If you don't, you have no hope in the future of having anything that looks like a democratic republic or representative democracy, depending on where you want to put the emphasis.
Yes. I think we missed the boat by not getting enough signatures on that fair boundaries petition. That would have really helped, because that would have made an independent group that looked try to do it by geography and, you know, common concerns, rather than let's make it as difficult as possible to get anybody but a Republican elected, which is the criteria that's being used. And I don't know if you've seen, the Republicans have come out with, what is it, 2 or 3 different plans for redistricting. Have you seen those where Salt Lake's divided in 4, we've got a donut hole in the middle, and we've got, you know, all these bizarre ways of dividing up the state. Again, trying to dilute the Democrats in the state as much as possible. I think really the only answer is, and I'm going to just stick it right out here, is we need to write and we need to create a huge stink as a population in the fall when those guys get back in session. I should say fall, it's January, isn't it? In January when we get back in session, put as much pressure as we can, with as many emails and phone calls as we can, on those people who represent us and say, look, this is a fairness issue. It isn't a left or right, it isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. We want fair boundaries for our elections. And if you can't do it, what I'm going to promise is I'm going to campaign against you. I'm going to go out and campaign against you. That worries them a lot. You know, and I know you've got representatives down here that think that they can thumb their nose, but there are enough Republicans that think this is ridiculous.